Hi, and welcome to PJ and the Beard. This is our 19 conversation series. This is episode number 35. And we've been really fortunate to get a bunch of cool people to come on the show with us. And so today, from Hamstead with no P, it's Tim Steer, right? Is that how you say your last name?
Great, sir.
Great.
Yep.
So how are you doing? Like we did,
yeah, very good.
10 minutes before this started.
Yeah. Yeah, no, doing really well, thanks.
So are you same thing going? You said you're from Cambridge? Same kind of thing going on where you're at? Social distancing, staying at home?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. I might have a little delay thing going on with the audio.
Just need to mute your YouTube. If you have YouTube open at the same time, mute that.
I might have a little delay thing going on with the audio. There we go.
Yeah.
That's clever. I think we're good now.
Yeah, because there's about like a 20
I thought I'd been really clever because I've set my microphone up so it like brings in audio, but it doesn't put it out through my speakers. And I thought, yeah, I've really nailed this kind of podcast thing. And then it left the YouTube window open as well. So, yeah.
Nice. So same kind of social distancing and staying at home going on in Cambridge?
Yeah, totally. We've kind of, I guess I don't even know how long it's been going on for here, but yeah, only going out for essential stuff. I have a dog, so I get to go out and walk her a few times a day. But apart from that, we're pretty much just sticking inside. So
yeah, I don't know what I would be doing without the dog to take for walks right now.
Yeah.
True. There was something else I wanted to tell you. If you look at your screen, and I forgot to tell you this before we started, but in the upper right-hand corner, it says live comments. If you click that button, you can see comments that are coming in as we go.
Cool. Yeah, I got that.
So we got Brian Landreth in the house. Pete Hickson from Australia. So you're about 9:30 at night over there. What did he say he was last time he was in? Like 6:30 in the morning or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, in the little pre-interview, we always like to call it that. Tim was like, I know what time it is, but I don't know if it really matters at this point. Like, is anybody really marking time anymore?
Right. So we do a couple things here. We do the clip of the day and the pedal of the day. And so I thought, because Hamstead's probably better known for their amps.
Yeah.
Started with amps. So Pat found a little clip of an amp, and it just happens to be from one of our favorite shows, right? One of our favorite YouTube shows. So, Pat, do you want to introduce that, or?
Yeah. So, as usual, for those of you who've been following us on this journey, if we have someone in that's in the business, we kind of peruse their artist list and maybe find ourselves a new person. But we thought that having a clip of Daniel Steinhardt from that pedal show would be appropriate, because I believe that that's how we really know about Hampstead, is through that. And Daniel's a fantastic player. I will say that maybe this clip doesn't feature, a diverse swath of Dan's playing, but it's fantastic. And so it's, I think, on a Telecaster, kind of more on the clean tones of the Hampstead on this little clip here.
All right, so let's play that.
So this is the Hamstead 60 RT. You notice looks a little bit different. It's a bit small.
So very cool. It's a nice looking amp.
Thanks, man.
And so I'm going to go out on a limb here. There's a kind of a connection between you and the guy Daniel over at that pedal show, because did I read somewhere that the switching in your pedal has something to do with gig rig?
Yep. So it's a kind of switching idea that Dan developed for the G2 system. So it basically, instead of I thought you might ask about it, so I actually grabbed one. So I don't know if you can see it, but that's the little guy. So instead of being like a normal switch, I'll just show it up. It's literally just a plunger. So, and all that does is the little metal bit that goes down in the middle blocks a beam of light from a kind of infrared transmitter to a kind of receiver, and that's how it does its switching. So there's no kind of physical part to break in it. Like we've got a few pretty heavy-footed artists, so so kind of wanted to find the best thing we could, and spoke with Dan about that. And I think the Odyssey was the first like pedal outside of the gig rig to actually use his switching stuff. So,
Oh, that's very cool. That's awesome. Well, and I think that's a good segue, maybe, because if we talk about pedal of the day, so obviously one of the ways that we got in touch with Tim was an email asking him about the Signature Analogue Tremolo. So we'll make that pedal of the day. That we wanted to get in for the Tremolo series. And so that's kind of where our relationship started, talking to him through email. And then he had said about there's some interesting bits here if we wanted to talk about it prior to recording it. And we're kind of on hold to record because we can't get in the same room right now, trying to follow the social distancing guidelines. And so I thought, well, instead of like trying to email back and forth to find out, to have that conversation, why don't we do it this way? So why don't we bring you on the show and we'll do it? We'll talk about it. So let's talk a little bit about the Signature Analogue Tremolo.
Cool.
And where that came from and all the good stuff.
Sure. So it's basically it's exactly the same circuit as in the amplifiers. So the amps are called the like Artist 20 or Artist 60 plus RT, and the RT is literally just reverb and tremolo. The Trem circuit is just an original design that Peter came up with. It's got a couple of kind of cool features about it. The main thing is that it uses all analog waveform creation circuitry. So like in guitar pedal world, you can either do analog waveform creation or digital waveform creation. A lot of the time, if you see like a pedal with tap tempo on it or loads of different waveforms, it's probably digital. And if it just it's a very simple pedal, it's probably analog. The thing about Peter's one is it uses analog waveform creation circuitry, but makes perfect waveforms. And that's it's pretty tricky to do. I didn't realize how hard it was until he showed me the circuit diagram and how it actually does it. But it's more similar to how I guess some old synthesizers would do it or that kind of thing. So that's kind of where it came from. And it was a guy called Ben Smith, who's a kind of session guy over here. You might know him from Anderton's TV. He does all the acoustic kind of demos and stuff for them. He's been using our amps for a long time, and he had one of the very, very early prototypes. And he said, the Trem's so good, I just wish I could take it on my board to when I'm not using the amp, and thus the Trem was born.
No. So let's start with. So there was a question about the different powers and stuff like that, and we can talk about it, but I'm kind of more interested in what would the recommendation be? Like if you were putting this on your pedal board, would you run it at 9 volt, 12 volt, or 18 volt? Why?
They're exactly the same. So one of the things with the Trem, it takes a lot of power. So compared to like one of my favorite old Trems, I've got a little Mojo Hand Sugar Baby, and I think that takes like 6 milliamps, maybe 10 milliamps, something like that. Whereas ours at 9 volts is 450, and a lot of people will be like, that's just crazy for an analog pedal. But it's because of the waveform creation kind of circuitry is almost like an entire keyboard LFO kind of thing is crammed into a tiny pedal. And then the other big thing is the power supply in it. we really wanted like super clean headroom. And one of the big things with a lot of trems is they can get quite noisy. Just the way the topology works, they often create a lot of noise. So we've done, it's got its own like isolated power supply inside the pedal. So whatever power you put into it, it basically goes into that. It's quite a big block and changes it to plus or minus 15 volts. So that kind of, it basically gives you 30 volts of headroom on the power rails, for depending how deep people want to get. But that's getting into studio grade quiet, and gives it the power it needs to kind of drive what should be like a box like this big kind of worth of circuitry.
Is that what allows you, because this, not all tremolos would come with you have it labeled as a gain knob.
Yeah.
But is that kind of what allows you to get that extra headroom to push that gain, to push the volume on it, because you have so much clean headroom in it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's mostly for the noise floor. So what happens when your signal goes into the pedal, it instantly gets boosted before it runs through any of the circuitry. So that means that the circuitry is like seeing like a really hot signal, like a lot of juice is kind of going through it, and then it gets attenuated on the way back out to get your kind of unity kind of gain level. I guess we'll talk about some other products, but one of the common themes of Hampstead is Peter is obsessed with noise floor. Like the amps, you can run the master really, really high and it has almost no hum, and all the pedals we like try and make as quiet as possible. So yeah, but running like power into it, whether you put 9 volts, 12 volts, 18 volts, you get plus or minus 15 inside either way. So there's no kind of like, I guess I've got a full tone OCD, which I've used for a long time, and I prefer that at 18 volts to 9 volts. Whereas with the trem, there's no difference whatsoever.
So kind of like whatever you have, because some people might not have a 9 volt at 450 milliamps open.
Yeah,
they have that 12 volt spot open or something like that. Then
yeah, sure. That was the idea of putting it on. So I kind of, when we first started playing with it and I saw like the figures of how much current it was drawing, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be usable for a lot of guitarists. But thanks to a lot of digital pedals, really, like the big Strymon stuff, and loads of power supplies now have higher current outputs. And I kind of made a list. I like went through pretty much every power supply kind of made just to see how many could use it. And there's like 50 or something that will work really well with the trem. A lot of it's like, if you've got the Voodoo Labs pedal power, I guess is a big one. You run that at 12 volts and it's fine. All the Strymon power supplies now are kind of 500 milliamps every output. Dan Steinhardt's the gig rig like power supply system, if you run it straight from a distributor, you get 5 amps of current. So yeah. So we haven't, I think out of everyone we've sold so far, there's only been one guy who had to go out and get a different power supply and runs it off a separate kind of thing. So,
cool.
It's also completely isolated as well. So, a lot of guys will, if you're using daisy chains or really bad kind of quality power, the isolation thing can be an issue, but the trem is, that power supply isolates itself. So you can use like the nastiest kind of dirty power, daisy chains, whatever, and you'll get like isolated power into that.
That's really interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard of somebody putting the isolation inside the pedal.
Yeah, it's I don't really know of any other people that have done it. It's kind of, there's a lot of stuff that we do in our design process, like Peter Hamstead, his background isn't in guitar products at all. So he just designs stuff the best way he thinks to do it, based on like, I don't know, 30, 40 years electronics experience. So there's quite a few little features in all the stuff that's just really not seen in guitar world generally.
No, that seems That seems really big. I mean, it seems like to me like because there are a lot of guys that are running like a like a one spot and
Sure.
daisy chaining 5 pedals together, and so that'd be really nice. So on the back of the pedal, we have the DCN, the DCN, and we have the in and out, but then there's also the control jack, and then that's a control jack for an expression pedal.
Sure.
Which you said takes over speed. So maybe just real quick for people that are interested in how that would work.
Yeah, sure. So like if you're using, we tested it a lot with a Roland EV5, which has the little knob on the side. I think a bunch of the mission engineering stuff you can do that with as well. But you can then use the knob on the expression pedal to set your minimum speed, and then the knob on the trem becomes your maximum speed. So you're not just kind of plugging in an expression pedal and it's always the full sweep. You can actually set your minimum and your maximum. So like if you wanted to kind of do a Leslie style thing where you go between the slow speed and fast speed, you can do that. Or if you wanted to set 2 different tempos for 2 different songs, you can do that as well. The control input uses control voltage. So we're actually in the process of developing a kind of, we're calling it the high-low remote box that you can put in that'll switch between 2 speeds, but it's got some cool other features on it as well.
Oh, it's almost just like a single foot switch that's gonna jump you back and forth without maybe
So
be a little smaller.
At first, this is kind of typical for Hampstead products. At first, we said, we're just going to do a box that has a high speed and a low speed, and that's that. And then Peter said, well, would you want it to be able to automatically go between the 2 speeds? And it's like, well, okay, that would kind of be cool. And what if you wanted to do a Leslie thing and ramp between the 2 speeds, like ramp up and ramp down? And before we know it, it's kind of turned into a bit of a monster of a product as opposed to a simple box. But but yeah, I think that's going to be really cool when we finally get it out, and it'll work with a bunch of pedals as well. It won't just work with Hampstead stuff. So
that's cool.
That should be fun.
So we did a whole series on Leslie pedals prior to going into Tremolo. So what I just heard you say is that we have one more pedal to try out as a Leslie.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's obviously like you don't get the Doppler effect, or any of the kind of phasing stuff, but it's one thing I love about the Leslie thing, and I guess you guys have found on your favorite Leslie pedals, like the sort of curve of the ramp between the speeds makes a big difference, and sort of how quick or how slow. So we just thought that hasn't really been done with Tremolo as far as I know before, but couldn't see any reason why not. So yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Pete Hickson in the chat said that the isolated power supply in the pedal was one of the best ideas he's heard in a long time. I love this. I love the idea too with this box that you're talking about. That's really cool. Because expression pedals are cool, but I wonder, like, if you would go out into the world and find out how many pedals people have on their board that have expression pedal jacks, and how many expression pedals they actually have hooked up to their board.
Sure.
Right. It's probably not that many, but the idea of like a box that could do that maybe doesn't take up as much room as an expression pedal, and can get you those 2 speeds, especially with the ramp, because the ramp is so, like, when you hit the ramp at the right time, it's magical.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that becomes like an expressive effect as well. Like you get it. It's all over loads of Hammond stuff. Like when the guy kind of hits the speed change or like full stop at the right moment, it's a special thing. Just hearing that, I guess it's like a natural sounding effect. It's not like a kind of hard. So many guitar effects are sort of on or off, or you kick a distortion pedal in and that happens, and you've got all your playing dynamics to kind of be emotive and that kind of thing, but it's not so often that effects kind of do that, I guess. You get it with some of like some delays and stuff. Like I got an Empress Super Delay a while ago, and it was one of the first pedals that had the kind of shimmery kind of delay that just disappears off into the ether, And I thought that was really cool. Like that was kind of an expressive thing that the pedal was doing its own thing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're the first person other than us that's actually talked about that shimmer effect, because it is really unique. I mean, I have an Electro-Harmonix Canyon back here that I kind of basically use just for that shimmer, and we've got like something from Love Pedal. It's really unique. Like you said, there's kind of very few effects that are so unique but feel kind of natural or kind of cover a space that is really expressive. I agree with that. That's awesome.
Really.
All right, so if we look at the front, we're just diving. It's a deep dive into the Signature. If we look at the front, we have a speed and the depth, and I think that most people are going to probably be pretty familiar with the difference between that. The gain knob is going to bring in some more volume. Tremolos, I think, have this kind of natural perceived volume drop a lot of times when you kick them on.
Sure.
Right, so you put the gain knob on so we can boost that a little bit.
Well, we did. There's another little feature in it. So basically, the
yeah, go ahead.
Peter, when the trem was designed on the amp at first, you've obviously got the perceived volume kind of loss with trem, just because you have less time with volume than not. So on a pedal, you can put the gain knob and it's fine, but because the trem is foot switchable on the amp, we didn't want it so that when you kicked in the trem, you had that perceived volume loss. So it's actually designed in the circuit that as you turn up the depth, the volume compensates for it. So it actually goes up. So like on the, and you can try it out when you plug the pedal in. If you have the gain on 0, which is unity, put the depth like sort of pretty much all the way up and the speed fairly slow. When you kick it in, you don't get the perceived volume loss thing, because when you turn the depth knob up, it's actually compensating with volume at the same time. So the gain is literally there for if you want a boost or something like that. Yeah,
that's cool.
What about, and then the last knob, I guess, that we probably should talk about is the shape knob then.
Yeah, so that it works in all the waveforms, but it's easiest to think about it on triangle. When it's in the center and it's got like a little center indent at 12 o'clock, you've got your triangle kind of waveform. If you turn it clockwise, it tips it up to be like, I don't know which way this is going on kind of YouTube thing, but
we'll follow.
You get like a kind of sawtooth kind of thing. So it ramps up and then drops off really quick. And if you turn it the other way, you end up with a really hard-on sawtooth and a slow decay. And you've got sort of blend in between those. You can literally tip it like really slowly one way or really slowly the other.
Now, is that only on the triangle wave, or is that on all the waves?
That's on all of them. So a triangle is just the easiest one to think about, because the classic waveform is this weird kind of output bias, kind of half square, half scoop sine wave kind of thing, which I can't do easily with my hands.
So yeah, and then you do have 3 waveforms. So you have the classic waveform, you have the sine wave, and then the triangle.
Yeah.
So just kind of following along with what you're saying, and to show my ignorance, a classic waveform then, if we go and we look at maybe like a classic Fender Deluxe or whatever from the 60s, it's probably not a sine wave.
No. It's probably creating a sine wave into the circuit, but then the amount of kind of analog valve stuff, like especially output bias tremolo, like where it's using valves, it's a pretty weird waveform. Kind of by the time it goes through all the circuitry, you start with a sine wave, and it's like Chinese whispers. Every component it goes through, it gets a little different. It's kind of the same thing I was explaining with, if people say they've made an analog sine wave to begin with, it's very hard to get it out as a sine wave at the other end. So it's the same in pedals, same in amps, and the one we've based it on is kind of like the fairly early Fender kind of output bias trem stuff, and it's pretty flat at the top, and then it kind of does a bit of a scoop and scoops up again, almost like a sine wave, but each side of the scoop is unequal, and then it does kind of the flat bit at the top again. So has a sort of almost square wave, but more natural vibe to it. So
one of the things that you were talking about with us kind of beforehand, and even now is how hard it is to get that sine wave out of a truly all analog pedal. So this is the Signature Analogue Tremolo because it is an all analog pedal. And you were just kind of mentioning how hard it is to do that. What on the, which I think is cool because a lot of people really like, the idea of something being all analog.
Sure.
And then maybe not, when you were saying some people have, maybe analog tremolos that have digital.
Yeah. So the tricky thing with it is with a trem, the circuitry part is subtracting volume. So you can have even all the pedals that I mentioned that have a digital chip doing the waveform bit, they are still all analog signal path. It's just your signal path is getting told to be quiet by a digital component. So it's not like the entire guitar community is lying to everyone saying an analog pedal's analog when it's digital. It's just digital control, I guess. And when we did the version 2, we got the same digital chip in that loads of people used because we wanted to add tap tempo and we wanted to add different waveforms and stuff. And we thought, yeah, this is a perfect way to do it. So we built up our first breadboard, and I kind of said, I can hear the difference. Like, it doesn't sound the same as it did before. And Peter came to me and said, that's ridiculous. Like, a sine wave is a sine wave. You shouldn't be able to hear the difference between the two. But so we made up a little 2 breadboards with a switcher, and I didn't know which was which, and I picked it 10 out of 10 times. It's just a weird, and it's not like it's night and day. Like, and it's like, I think most people would be able to tell if you had them side by side. There was just one felt lovely, and the other one felt really, really good. So yeah.
And we gotta, of course you want to lead towards lovely, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm completely in the middle of on the fence of old school and new school. Like, I've got one of my favorite amps apart from the Hampstead stuff. I've got an old Fender Super from 1963, and it's just kind of, it smells good when you turn it on. Like, but then there's so much other stuff like Studio Gear I use, which is the most modern, and plugins that do stuff that analog stuff can't. And there's a place for everything. But with the Signature Trem, we went down the lovely route as opposed to the kind of digital one.
Tim, I think if you left Cambridge and went down to Stratford-on-Avon, you could rival that guy that came from there with your flowery thoughts and the way you describe things.
Maybe. Yeah, I've got a couple more sonnets to write before I get.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So do you want to keep going down the pedal line, Jason, or what do you want to? Or
yeah, it's up to you guys. I am interested which the classic sine wave or triangle wave would be part of the amp then.
That's the sine wave. So the Signature.
Okay.
The Signature Tremolo is like the sine wave one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking, Pat? You want to?
Well, I think Tim said he had other pedals, and I know he has his other personal pedals there too. But I don't know what Tim wanted to perhaps show us that's in the Hamstead line as well.
Well, I have their website open. I can
share your screen, right? Yeah.
Share the screen, and we can just take a look at the other two. Like if I click on pedals, overview maybe. So the other two are the Subspace and the Odyssey. If you just want to give kind of a brief, we won't have to get into every knob and button on them, but
yeah. So they're not the most simple pedals. Like I saw the episode you did with Jamie Stillman from Earthquaker yesterday, and his favorite pedal he did was the one with one knob on it.
Right.
And yeah, so sometimes I get to feeling that as well. But yeah, the Odyssey is the first pedal that I did with Hamstead. So basically, like, my background is session guitar stuff, and I'd find myself taking 10 or 15 drive pedals to every session. And we were talking about doing a drive pedal. I said, there's millions out there. If we're going to do it, we have to do something kind of different. So the concept we came up with was trying to do a pedal that kind of did everything, but it had to be completely analog, and I had to be able to take it to a session not wishing I'd brought my Tube Screamer or bought my OCD or whatever, it would have to be as good as those. So yeah, and I think we've kind of done it from my perspective. Like it's the same with all pedals, like it's personal preference and stuff, but yeah, that's our first kind of crack at a drive pedal. The Subspace was meant to be, or started life as the bass version of the Odyssey. I have a friend who's a session bass player and plays for like Kylie Minogue and Ellie Goulding and pretty big pop gigs and stuff, but he's a bass pedal fiend. He's called Cy Francis. Yeah, and what he doesn't know about bass pedals isn't really worth knowing. So we got him down, got a breadboard out, and just worked on making kind of the best bass pedal we could. Got to the point where we were really happy with it. I sent like other samples out to guys like Tim Lefebvre and Juan Alderete and stuff, and the feedback was, yeah, don't change anything about it, which was pretty amazing.
Right.
And then I plugged a guitar into it one day and was like, wow, this is a killer guitar pedal as well. Like it's kind of different to the Odyssey. Like it's a lot warmer. And I was talking to a customer about it the other day. He was basically asking what he should get. And I'd say the Odyssey covers all the guitar frequencies that you'd expect. Like it's voiced for the frequencies that a guitar creates. And kind of when you get into the higher gain stuff, it's like, I guess, covers the more modern kind of Marshall-y territory, like the kind of 70s to 80s kind of Marshall-y sort of vibes. Also the really bright kind of voxy sort of stuff it does really well. And then more kind of mid-pushed amps. The Subspace does like all the kind of earlier Marshall-y stuff, like warmer kind of things. Really great kind of like tiny Fender kind of amps being pushed beyond their limit kind of settings, and some kind of glitchy fuzz stuff. So yeah, but there's a lot of drive sounds in both of those. So yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I saw with the Odyssey, you have three-way toggle things. So you have like 3 different types of clipping. You have basically a drive, a distortion, or a fuzz that you could get out of it, right? So I mean, it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So, where do you want to go? Why don't we touch on why we're here at the website, touch on the amps, and then maybe get into some of the guitars or things that you have in your personal collection that you like, and where's it? Amplifiers. So it's what, basically the Artist 20 and the Artist 60 right now, right?
Yeah, so they both come in either a combo or a head format, and then we do like a 1x12 and a 2x12 cab.
And so, Dan was playing the 20, is that right?
He was playing the 60 in the video that you had. Okay. So he was one of the first guys to ever really start using the Artist 20 kind of back when that was the first amp that we had. And then he was actually a little bit involved in developing the 60. So I think both me and him were kind of thinking at the same time, like, if you really want like proper clean headroom, say you're playing with quite a loud drummer and you want your amp to be crystal clean, the extra headroom is really good. Like I've been using like 100-watt high wops for a lot of stuff in the past and really enjoyed that kind of feel. So yeah, so we just kind of started working on the 60, and it's actually got a 3-position bright switch on it, which was Dan's idea. He wanted kind of that like middle position where you've just got a tiny bit of bright kind of stuff. So got that in there for him. And yeah, just tried to make like the kind of best pedal platform amp that we could, whilst making it kind of as versatile as we could as well.
So you're saying the Tremolo circuit in both of these is the same that's in the pedal, right?
Yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah, pretty much exactly the same circuit. So we've I pulled out a little circuit board as well. So like that is a trem before it actually goes in. So it's a lot of tiny components. So, and this is the I don't know if you can see it. This is the power supply.
Okay.
So it's a chunky old thing.
Yeah. And so those are master volume amps, but they're one channel, right?
Yep, all single channel.
Now, when you play through that, would you run the master pretty high, or would you run it? How do you approach it?
It depends. I think the other thing we were really going for with especially the 60 was kind of a really versatile studio amp as well. So if you want to get a kind of voxy sort of sound out of it, you can actually run the 60 on 20 watts, run the master on full, and then just use the gain. It feels like a non-master volume amp. And that kind of gets really close. You just cut the bass a bit, boost the treble a bit. Whereas if you want, I guess, like a tiny bit of hair coming from the preamp, you just run the master a bit lower. But yeah, it really depends. Like there's not quite as many sounds in the amp as there are on the Odyssey, but there's a lot of stuff you can get out of it. And I've been amazed with our kind of artists and stuff as well. You see the people using them. One guy's using, like, we have Kevin Armstrong, who plays for Iggy Pop, and he's running them loud. Like he has 2 heads, 2 2x12 cabs, and I think he's on one of the only gigs in the world where his boss tells him to turn up every night. So but then guys like the guys from London Grammar using them, like super clean, really pristine kind of sound, or guys like James Bay, kind of something in the middle, like really bluesy or kind of vibey guitar stuff. So yeah, so it covers a lot of ground. I think a lot of what I'd hope out of it is people just find their own kind of thing in it.
So are the Tremolo and Reverbs, it's the single channel amp, are they foot switchable? Is that how you?
Yeah, you've got a 4-button foot switch, so you can turn off the reverb, the trem. The effects loop is foot switchable as well, and it has a voice control, which is like a kind of upper mid-range boost. So you can use that kind of almost like a tube screamer kind of thing if you just want to push the mids. Some guys leave it on all the time if they just want a more mid-voiced kind of amp. Yeah, but all foot switchable.
And then the cabinets, are they all closed back, open back, 3/4?
Both open. I've been really happy with the 1x12 especially. I think is one of the best 1x12s I've ever played. Kind of trying to be objective about it, obviously. Work for the company. But yeah, when it was kind of a happy accident with that. When we were developing it, we were trying out like different fretboards. The first one was actually before I was even involved in the company. So they had a kind of speaker baffle, and then they'd put a different baffle on front of it for the fretboard so they could kind of change them in and out. And then when they were going to go to design, they went back to the single baffle and just put the fretboard on it, and it completely changed the sound of the cab. So we've basically started running with almost 2 baffles kind of stuck together. So I think it's like it's like 30 mil baffle or something. Like it's ridiculous for a speaker cab. But I think it just holds the speaker differently, and you get really tight low end response out of it. Like it feels a lot bigger than a standard kind of 1x12. So yeah, it's one of those. And I think with acoustics, it's ridiculous. You could spend your entire life trying to design the perfect speaker cab. Acoustics are a whole level of wizardry that I never want to get into if I can avoid it.
Right. Yeah. You can only be a sorcerer in so many crafts, right?
Yeah, totally.
So then what type of speakers and what's the wattage then of those cabs? So
we use mostly Celestion Creambacks. We've been using those for quite a while. It's like a high-powered greenback for anyone who doesn't know. We've more recently started using Celestion Anniversaries in the 20-watt amps. We had a kind of huge speaker shootout day. Me and another session guitarist literally went through, I think, every speaker that Celestion make in a day, and just felt the Anniversary kind of just had the edge over the creamback with the 20, whereas the creamback was kind of perfect with the 60. So yeah,
That's cool.
So what's your, I mean, we've talked a good bit about Hampstead and, you know, what's going on there, and it looks like it's crazy good stuff. What's your background then, you know, before coming, or even now? You've talked about doing studio work. Are you still doing that?
yeah. So I do less now, to be honest. My main background was in live kind of session stuff. So probably did like 8 to 10 years of touring. Yeah, getting to travel around the world, play to cool crowds, and really play with amazing musicians as well. I feel like always felt like the guy in the room that was trying to hold on and keep up, and yeah, just really happy to kind of be there and hanging with some good guys. So yeah, so that's kind of my background. I got in touch with Hampstead originally because I grew up around here near Cambridge, and they had one of the very early amps in a music store that I used to work in when I was like 17, 18 years old or something. I tried it out and was kind of blown away by it. So it was kind of on my radar for a couple of years. And then saw a kind of post from James Hamstead on Facebook about someone to help out with pedals. I was kind of getting to the point where I'd used pedals for my whole career, but actually had no idea how they worked, and was kind of interested. So went down, just did a couple of random days, kind of building some pedals with those guys, and that was, I think, 3.5 years ago now, coming up to 4 years. So yeah, but still do bits of session stuff. Like I've got a studio at home and travel out and do live gigs and that kind of thing when we're allowed to do them, of course.
Right.
Yes. There's a lot of musicians jonesing to go out and play right now. There's going to be. Can you imagine when we finally get to a point where all of these pent-up musicians get a chance to step in front of people again? What that's going to be like?
Yeah, you wish you could simultaneously be at all of those gigs at the same time, because everybody is just going to let loose on those. So with your playing background, and we're always curious to know, like, what, as far as guitars go, what would be your number one? What is your?
So I have it in my rack, so I can pull it out.
Brody just jumped in.
What's up, man?
So my number one is this guy. So pretty standard Telecaster. It's made by a guy called Dave King. I don't know if you can see this.
I can make that big. Hold on. There you go.
So
yeah.
So Dave, I'm gonna check it out of the way, but so he's a luthier in the UK, kind of primarily known for his acoustics, I guess. I came across him when I was probably 17 years old or something, and went to a guitar show, and he had a parlor-sized acoustic for like £4,000 or something. And my 17-year-old brain said, why would anybody pay that for a completely unusable guitar that, I don't know, I guess I thought people in the medieval times used to play parlor-sized guitars or whatever. Asked him if I could play it. He very graciously said I could. Picked it up, strummed one chord, and was like, what the heck is this? This is crazy. So like, huge sound, amazing feel, like, you know, when you just play an instrument and it's like, this is a different ball game. So I just kind of kept up with him a bit after that. He had a shop on Denmark Street in London, which is kind of the big kind of store, music store road. So just used to pop in, couldn't afford any of his guitars, but would just kind of say hi. And then was looking for a Telecaster for a while, playing a bunch of stuff. This is years later. Went through loads of Fender custom shop things and a bunch of other makers, and just didn't have that kind of feeling, you know, like everyone wants, where you pick up a guitar and it feels like the one. So I went to just randomly see Dave, and he had that thing sat on a stand, picked it up. I tried it out through a Squire SP10 practice amp, you know, like everybody's first amplifier. and yeah, it was best Telecaster I've ever played. Like, and I've used it. I think I've probably had it 10 years or so now, and I think I've used it on every gig I've ever done, almost. Wow. Like, I normally travel with a few guitars for different sounds and stuff, but yeah.
Now, is that something he made kind of as a one-off? He continues to make them. He has other electrics in addition to the acoustics.
He does. He's basically like a lot of guitar builders. He kind of does his own thing. Like when after the parlor guitar experience, I was trying to get him to make me a dreadnought because that's kind of what I was into at the time. Mm-hmm. And he literally told me where I could go and stick my dreadnought idea, and he made parlor guitars. So, in the nicest possible way.
Of course, in the proper British way. I'm sure.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, so I then said like Tremolo maybe, like kind of something a little bit more.
Yeah, you're getting closer to that size, right? Like.
so when I saw he'd made an electric, I literally said to him, I was like, "What? You won't make a slightly bigger acoustic for me, but you'll make a Telecaster?" And he just said, "Oh, I felt like it." So he's a really nice guy, by the way. He's kind of he's just sticks to his guns, but yeah. So I think he's made a few more. He definitely doesn't make loads of them. He had. I forget the guy. He has a Signature Tele model, which I think is a thin line for a really cool guitarist. You'd have to Google it, but yeah, he's not well known in the UK at all, but amongst a lot of pros, like way higher up the pecking order than me, he's a bit of a go-to dude. Like if you've got a Martin from the 1930s that you don't want anything bad to, but you want a decent setup, then Dave's your guy, I think.
So it's probably interesting for you. Probably get asked about that guitar all the time, and because it's different, and like, yeah, you could call him.
Yeah, well,
and he'll give you a parlor guitar.
Yeah, no, I mean, I said to him recently because we take it. It's been the guitar that I've used for testing all the Hampstead stuff and everything, because it's just kind of. I think Tellies are great for that, because if you get one with a warm enough neck pickup and a kind of full enough bridge pickup, it's kind of the perfect sort of middle ground for me anyway, between it gets a bit like Stratty, but it pushes towards that, not humbuckers per se, but as close as you're going to get in the middle. And I said to him, do you want to give us any other guitars to take to shows to kind of hang up? And he was like, I've got like a 6 to 8 month waiting list at the moment for anything. I'm doing all the stuff I want to keep working on he does like chopper crazy bikes and stuff as well in his spare time. So yeah, he's happy doing what he's doing. Didn't want the promo.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around a guy that makes $4,000 parlor guitars having or 4,000 pound parlor guitars having a Squire amp in there for you to test out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, it's like loads of builders, to be honest. I know guys who've got access to everything and just have the tiniest, smallest amp, and it's literally on their desk so they can plug something into it and be like, yeah, that pickup works.
It's interesting. I think that's the same concept. Back in the day, because I'm older, like if you go to a studio and they have various style reference monitors, and they always had one that would almost replicate like AM radio, like something that was like the barest bones. Because I think the thought was, if I can make it sound right in here, it's going to sound even better as you go up the scale. And maybe that's his thought there, right? I just need something to test some things. And to you as well, like when you play that guitar through all the Hamstead, you know what you're getting. There's no other variables, right? You know that guitar in and out.
Yeah, totally.
So any of the variances that you're hearing are the amp and the pedal or whatever you're trying out.
Yeah.
Because we talk about that all the time when we go try out something. We're like, we have to have one common thing at least. If you're doing an amp, a guitar, and a pedal, you at least better know one, if not two of those things.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like there's a lot of I guess a lot of people, when you go to music stores and stuff, you're kind of trying out amps and pedals and stuff with the guitar that the guy pulled off the wall. And it's definitely not the same. And it's, I mean, for me, I wouldn't really be able to do the voicing stuff the same way I do without that guitar, because I know that thing inside out without having to think about it, as opposed to I find it just gets more mentally taxing if you're having to compensate in your head for, okay, I'm playing this guitar now and I know this should sound like this compared to whatever. So
yeah, there's actually been a few inexpensive pedals that I've walked into a big American box store and just be like, I'll take it, because I wasn't going to put myself through that, right? Go play through some small little solid state Black Star and some Squire Telly. I'm just like, I'll just take it. It's fine. It's a pedal. It's a pedal. It's not super expensive, but yeah. Pete Hickson on the chat was saying it's like checking your mix in a car stereo. You know, maybe listen to it back. And Guitar Hack has jumped in here, and I'm not sure we ever said hi to Terry Himes, but yeah. So it's interesting. You know, I think the reason we kind of got on YouTube is because we liked YouTube, right? So, but some of the people we liked were that pedal show and Andertons and gone down all of those relationships. And it sounds like that community, especially with you, are kind of very intertwined with each other, right? Is that true? Is true statement? I mean, you mentioned, you know, Daniel and Gig Rig, and then you mentioned something in the pre-conversation about like Schmidt Array, and you mentioned Andertons, and it's a really cool community.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been really cool, our relationship with Dan. Like he's the nicest guy, and he was basically really early on board with the Hampstead stuff. And if he finds something that he loves, he'll try and help the people out like as much as possible. So he's very picky and has ridiculous ears. Like when he's come up and done kind of testing stuff with us, like it's really cool to kind of get his take on different things. And also if you've done something that he likes, he freaks out about it, which is always really nice. Like we've got this clean boost pedal thing that we got ready for NAMM. And he heard one of the very early versions of that. And when I turned the bass control, he literally jumped off the sofa. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a good reaction for a bass boost control. So
yeah, he has genuine reactions, but extreme ones, right? Like when they have Joey Landreth on and he literally has to step off. Like you can tell he's a really nice guy and wants to be like fair and all of that, but you know when something has struck a chord with him. So that's interesting, because watching that Joey Landreth video, he had to get up 2 or 3 times because it was like he was moved.
He's the kind of guy you want to play poker with, like
high stakes poker.
Well, I was thinking he has an amazing ability to put it into words too. You know, like what he's hearing, what he's, you know, what he likes, what he doesn't like. He has a really, just like part of watching the pedal show and stuff is like he can put into words. Sometimes Pat and I are playing something or trying something, and we're both like, that's either really good or that's not so good, but I don't know how to put it into words sometimes. Like Dan has he's good at doing that.
Well, I think we learned today that a pedal has to be lovely, so we're going to work on that. Yeah, finding those that are lovely. That will help our vernacular describing pedals.
Well, when we do the episode for this, we'll have to remember that word.
maybe brilliant, lovely, some other nice words, but
I did go out on a limb and send Dan and Mick an email, but I don't think it would have get through. they have their social media, they have it locked down. You know, I can't imagine how many emails those guys get and how many people try to reach out with questions and stuff.
Yeah, they do. I know they try and answer as much as they can. Like, I'm always impressed. Like, if you look on their kind of comment stuff, the amount of replies, and it's them replying as well. It's not like
it's not their intern.
Yeah, they don't have like a huge number of people working with them, which makes it all the more amazing, to be honest, as far as I can tell, that it's such like a high quality production, and it's a tiny little team that kind of does it. But I think that's what keeps it kind of pure, and it's about Dan and Mick's personalities, their love for gear. And like I was saying before with you guys, when I got the first email from you, I was kind of like, these two guys have got the source of kind of, we can tell you both love gear and you're mates. And I think, it's just a good place to start. So but I think with Dan and Mick as well, it's so cool because they're kind of, I think I understand Dan a bit more when he says stuff, but like Mick just gives that slightly different kind of opinion, or like way of communicating stuff, which I think is really cool. I think they even did a what's it called, like a survey thing that you could fill out where you could work out whether you were more like Dan or Mick.
Like a personality test.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is interesting because Dan definitely very technical, like you said, very expressive in the way he can describe something, talk about design help, and I'm sure Mick knows way more than he lets on, but Mick does kind of just cut through it and kind of give the working man's
Sledgehammer.
let's go have a pint together, and I think Dan's over there like, what kind of fine gin can we have? So
Yeah.
interesting combo, those guys. So you mentioned something that made me think. I never really asked, like, how, and I know we're getting close to time here, but how big is Hampstead, like, employee wise? And one question we've asked people in these conversations is like, how is what's going on in the world affecting you all and your business and that kind of thing?
Sure. So we're pretty small, really. Like, it's kind of 4 of us that work full time on it. So the company was started by Peter Hamstead. His background is like crazy level electronics and radar systems and stuff like that. And the rest of it is pretty much a family business. So one of his sons builds kind of the amplifiers mostly. His wife does kind of small component soldering and sub-assemblies and stuff. And one of his other sons does all the graphic design, like the website, and he did all the business management and stuff for getting the company going. So when I started working with them, I was kind of the only person who didn't have Hampstead as a second name. We've now got a really cool kind of sales guy on board who's been helping us out with like dealer connections and that kind of thing, because it's no matter what you are, what your products are or whatever, it's a huge world to get out into. So we found some of that quite cool just for trying to meet new people in the industry. And yeah, who else do we have? We've got a couple of kind of like roaming soldering guys who come in every now and again. There's a good friend of mine called Brian Love, who you should check out. Actually, he'll hate me for saying this, which makes it a little more fun. But he does demos for. Do you guys know the North American Guitar? They're like a very boutique store in the UK.
Yeah.
They just opened up in Nashville as well. But if you want to drop like $30,000-$40,000 on an acoustic, you can go and check those guys out.
I was actually going to say a minute ago that Brody was in the chat. He's living in Nashville. And
Sure.
I was looking at where your dealers are. They're one of your dealers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so very cool guys. They're like guitar shopping on a whole other level. Like it's like going into a fine custom made suit store or something. You get a really bespoke experience. And they've been really cool with us as well. Like they do the 30 grand guitars, but they do much more kind of it's all premium, but they do more kind of achievable stuff as well, for sure. But their attention to detail with service and kind of what they know about their products and stuff is second to none from any other store I've seen. So, but Brian, the guy I was mentioning, he does all their demos and works with them, and he does some kind of pedal building stuff for us. It's been really cool.
We've got some open spots next week.
Yeah.
Well, and they have. You mentioned it's funny. All right, because I sent an email to you. I mean, we send emails like we're trying to do this, figure out how to do it. I sent an email out asking about, the pedal and stuff. When you go to Hamstead's website, which is up on the screen right now, and people should check out, which is just hamsteadsoundworks.com. I don't get the impression this is a father, son, wife, and you know what I mean? Like this. Whoever's on your website, you just said who it was, one of the sons, I think. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this is all James. Like I think the best thing about Hampstead is everyone has their thing, like their kind of niche that they're good at. So Peter is like electronics design guru, literally wears a lab coat every day for that's not like a kind of show thing for the website. Like that's standard issue.
He's going to work.
Yeah, because that's his background. He's used to working on stuff that if it doesn't work, it falls out of the sky. So it's kind of serious stuff. Tommy, his son, is like the making guy. Like I don't know if you've ever seen one of our amps up close, but like the corners where the Tolex kind of goes around, a lot of people just use a kind of cut technique so you can fold it around the corner. Whereas Tommy and Peter came up with this way to kind of bend it around the corner whilst keeping the pattern. And we're all ridiculously OCD. Attention to detail is like, we do a ton of stuff that we know nobody cares about. Like it's because we'd worry about it if it wasn't done that way, just because that's kind of people we are. But yeah, and then for me, like my background is just music stuff and listening to stuff pretty much. So yeah, so it's a very small team, but yeah, pretty efficient, I think, for what we do, and just trying to work with the best people we can as well. So like the video guys that did the demo for our Odyssey, he's the same guy that does the video for that pedal show. Like he's a guy we knew from that. When we get in other guitarists and stuff to do testing kind of things with us, we're trying to pick sort of, I guess there's a bunch of friends of mine from session kind of background stuff. It's always looking for the who knows more about this than we do, who's like the best person we can get in to do this. And there's it's definitely not the quickest way, and it's definitely not the least stressful way to do it, I can guarantee that. But it's yeah, we're just trying to do the best stuff we can. And yeah,
that's what we love. I mean, we've done so many of these now, and there's some themes that kind of run through them. But one of the things that we have found, that Pat and I have been finding, by the time you sit down and talk to somebody that's involved with the company, whether it's like Jamie Stillman, who's the guy that started it, or you, or whatever, I always walk away going, man, I want a Hampstead amp. You know, if there's this group of people that are putting that much effort and time and passion into it, you know. And I think these videos, I mean, hopefully the nice thing about them is they stay around and they're out there, and somebody's interested, they can bump into it and watch it and get to know Hampstead. And I always walk away just thinking, wow, this getting to know the people kind of behind the products is just so interesting.
Yeah, I think we're in a golden age for gear at the moment, though. Like we went to NAMM for the first time this year, and you've got, as well as the guys that you've had on, like Josh and Brian from Wampler and Jamie and all those guys, we were like bumping into like Adam from Satellite Amplifiers. Like he's a guy I think is super cool with what he's doing. You've got like the Benson guys making crazy good amps, Milkman doing amazing stuff as well. We got to meet Matt from Mule Resonators. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah, there's like a 1 or 2 year waiting list to get one of their guitars.
Yeah, literally. His booth was just around the corner from ours, and I was having to tear myself away from it every time. I just wanted to sit with one of his guitars for 4 days. But
so they're as good as they look like for a guy that's never seen one in person. There's
100%. Like, but I think there are a bunch of guys doing that kind of stuff at the moment, and I think it's just a really good time. Like we were saying with other brands and stuff, we're really good friends with Thorpe Effects over here in the UK. And his stuff is just ridiculous. Like wide range of pedals, you can plug in anything, and it's great.
They make the Dane, right?
Yeah. And also like the Schmidt array boards, that's pedal boards to another level again. We're really good friends with Grey Guitars over in the UK as well. So like Andy's gear demos, he uses one of those. Graham Coxon uses one. So yeah, we're at a point where the company's kind of growing. We're just trying to get out there and stuff, but there are all these other people in either a bit ahead of us or a bit behind us or whatever, who we're just trying to talk with. Like, I think we've got this great opportunity to build this new golden age. Like, if you imagine being around in the 60s or something, the gear that was kind of floating around then, you had like the original kind of Marshall Voxes, Fenders, Orange amps and whatever. And then I think if the last, at least when I was growing up, it was just the big guys. You could get like Boss or Fender or Gibson and Marshall. Like a lot of them are corporations now. They're not like guys in shops anymore. So I think it's the guy in a shop revolution is really just pleased to be a company that's hopefully in that kind of soup for the next 10-20 years and see what happens.
Right.
You keep mentioning the Smith array boards. I'd love to. I don't know that it's weird because like I haven't seen them in the States, I guess, that much. A lot of the YouTubers and people across the pond, if you will, you see them a lot, but you don't see them over here a lot. I'd love to see one of those. They're really impressive. Like I was speaking with Martin. We wanted one for going to NAMM, just because we were going over there with Tom Gray from Gray Guitars. We're like British guitars, British amplifiers, and Martin is actually British. He makes the pedal boards in Germany. But we just thought, we've got these. I don't know if you can see the microphone that I'm using is Aston Microphones, another great company in the UK. So just wanted to kind of play on that, I guess. And when the board turned up, it blew me away. Like if you think it's just, at the end of the day, it's a box that holds pedals. So, but seeing the engineering kind of that goes into it, you're like, yeah, it's another level.
Yep. We're not going to make you pull it up and show it to us, but there's one on the floor behind him because he was taking this quarantine time to kind of go through what do I put on my board in what order. But that'll be another time we'll do a rig rundown with Tim.
That's a whole other hour. For sure.
Yeah, right.
Guitar Hack said Mike Brady always plays through a Hamstead amp on his videos.
Yeah, Mike is great as well. Such a cool guy. Like so high energy. Like if you've seen any of his videos, he's like the Energizer Bunny, like super energetic guy. But we've got to hang out with him a lot, and he's just like that, like all the time. So cool. But yeah, great guitarist.
That's really cool. Like one of the things we've been discovering, and I think this is the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but I think this is the first amp builder we've had.
Yeah. We've had a couple other people. Wampler made a few, and Dave Barber made a few, but that's not what they do now. So that was first proper amp builder, sure. Yeah.
And we're sorry. Yeah, we've had a couple. Yeah, you're right. Dave Barber makes or did make it. Yeah,
but not currently.
Like the focus on amps, I think it might be the first one. But so one of the things we learned in the pedal world, those guys, where you would think it would be highly competitive and you would never hear them talk about somebody else, they all seem to get along and kind of have a friendship going and hang out a little bit. And it was kind of neat to hear you kind of running through the different companies out there that you guys are friends with, and same kind of thing. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think as well, like we're for musicians and stuff at the moment, I've just literally to the right of me is a full Marshall stack from that I have in my room in my house. But I've got like Fender amps and the high watt I still use, and the Hamstead stuff. The Hamstead stuff, obviously, I've got to kind of voice myself, so I've kind of done that to my own preference a lot. But yeah, I think there's enough music community for everyone to be friends and help each other out. And I don't think there's a middle ground really. You're either like a cutthroat businessman, my stuff is the best and everybody should buy it, or you may as well go to like, look, there are other great guitar amps in the world. I was showing an amp to a friend of mine, and he was saying that he'd heard of like the Audio Kitchen stuff as well, and they're amazing UK company as well. And I said to him, like, you just have to try both and see which one you prefer. Like the Audio Kitchen's not better than the Hamstead, and the Hamstead's not better than the Audio Kitchen. They're just different, and you want to get the one like with the Telecaster that I've got, where you plug into it and you go like, I could go to a desert island with this, and that's that. But then you'll probably be back to buy another one in a couple of years' time as well. So
you might have one done by then.
Because you need at least 3 behind you, right, for your stereo dry wet, or your wet dry wet, or your whatever it is.
Yeah, like in the next 5 years, it's going to be all about like wet dry, one Leslie speaker, like. Yeah.
We've got one Leslie speaker, so.
Yeah. Did you guys do an actual Leslie cab as well?
We have not, but
you recorded one little clip.
There is a Leslie 16 sitting
Cool.
back there behind me that we got, and we just hadn't had the chance to do the episode on that. There's a small recording of it out there somewhere, but
We were holding it towards the end, and we were going to go to one of our local shops and kind of have them just kind of go over it and do a couple little things to it, make an episode of that, and then play it, and then all this happened. So
Yeah.
so it's in limbo right now. But
big plans.
it's an actual Leslie 16, so that dates it probably sometime in the 60s, because I think late 60s, early 70s. Fender bought them and turned them into vibratones. Basically the same cabinet.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, I was looking at the owner, I found like an old copy of the owner's manual online, and they're like, once a year you need to open it up and oil it and do this. And I'm like, yeah. What do you think the chances are somebody did that in the last like 40 years?
Yeah, it's a proper mechanical thing, which is
yeah, I mean, when you turn it on, you hear
that would be the guy not oiling it for
right. Maybe we'll go put the 3-way plug on it, because it still has the little 2-way plug on it, and we'll go get it cleaned up a little bit, and then we'll record it. But
great.
It hasn't happened yet. So I mean, we are about 10 minutes over an hour, and so
sure.
Hack said Lawrence Petros used to make amps too. Cool.
Yeah, he did mention that. That's right.
I've seen his pedals actually. Did you guys do a episode with him already?
Yeah,
I need to check that out. I'd never heard of him, and then like have seen his pedals kind of popping up everywhere recently and sounding really good. So
yeah, he gets a lot of love. Like people really like the stuff he's building. So
yeah, I've never seen his stuff in the UK at all. So yeah, he should get in touch, and we'll try and put him in touch with some stores and stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are in here, like Guitar Hack, who's in the chat, knows Lawrence pretty good. I think Guitar Hack has a channel too, and he has people on and guests on, does live streams, and he's a good guy. So I think with that, Pat, I mean, like you said, time isn't really whatever anymore, but it also is probably after almost 11 o'clock p.m. where you at. So
yeah, 20 to 11.
But I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking
man.
an hour to talk to us. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you helping us out a little bit with that, getting that in.
Nice.
I apologize that we haven't put the video out yet, but
you've got a pretty good excuse, I'd say.
well, I mean, what kind of person would you be if you're like, what do you mean? People are dying and you haven't gotten together?
Yeah, no, respect social distancing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we kind of have everything we need here to do it. We'll do like the initial, here's what we're gonna do, and then we'll get that one up and running, and hopefully we'll have. I found out today, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I had a meeting today, and the meeting today was basically the premise that we won't be going back to school in August.
Right. Wow.
And people are talking, let's open everything up, and the guidelines. It sounds like the guidelines school districts are getting are don't count on it and start planning for it not to happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of things, or if that's true or anything like that. And we're not going to start a panic across the nation with people that are watching. But
fortunately, our demographic of 18 and below is pretty low, so we're not going to strike fear into children's hearts right now.
right, but just anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, but
crazy world.
Yeah, it's been crazy right now, but we're really looking forward to getting together and do it and recording that, and we appreciate so much you taking the time to join us.
I think it's such a good thing to be doing, like taking the situation and then just picking something good to do with it, like calling it an hour of distraction and stuff's really good. Because the world's crazy, so let's do what we can.
Right. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, it really is. This is if we weren't doing this, there probably would have been an hour sometime today where we would have sat down and talked about gear on the phone or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So why not just invite people in to join us and get to hang out with cool people like yourself and form those relationships and stuff. We certainly hope to talk to you again in the future about whatever it might be. I know what I'd like to talk to you about. Just
Yeah, it's it. Yeah,
when the new box comes out, I'd love to talk to you again about that. So
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
all right.
Well, yeah. So I guess it's thrown to me now. So Tim, thank you again, like Jason said, for coming on. You were certainly a brilliant ambassador for Hampstead, and if not, the whole UK community of guitar builders and pedal builders and amp builders. It's been a real pleasure having you on today. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to give you our tagline, which gives you all the permission you need to just keep getting gear, because this is PJ on behalf of the Beard, reminding you, no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear.
So. Before I end this, hey Sandra, I saw you. I'm sorry we didn't mention you. We're bad. Yeah. Thanks for stopping in, Sandra.
Yep.
See you later.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
There is.